You probably know about the myth of Oedipus, and beyond him killing his father and marrying his mother, he also had to confront a Sphinx. At the city of Thebes, Oedipus met the terrifying creature which devoured any traveler who couldn't solve her riddle. He either had to solve the riddle or die to the Sphinx. This trial in the story of Oedipus serves to display the hero's wisdom and intelligence. But of course, we know this is a legend, that Oedipus is a hero, a creation, a myth. But what happens when these myths are paralleled with reality? What happens when historical figures become mythical? Napoleon Bonaparte was one of those popular mythologized figures all throughout the 19th century, even decades after his death. In 1886, Jean-Léon Gérôme depicted Napoleon in front of Egypt's Sphinx during his invasion of Egypt. Napoleon is out for greatness for an emperor that is, conquering and expanding the French Empire out of Europe. Facing the Sphinx, just like Oedipus did, is a necessary trial before making history. Another artist who also famously depicted the myth of Oedipus and the Sphinx is Jean-Auguste-Dominique Ingres. Like many artists of his generation, Ingres also depicted Napoleon in his 1806 Napoleon I on his imperial throne. It's an extremely different portrait from Jérôme's painting. Not only is it making a myth out of Napoleon, Ingres is representing him like he would a god. For example, in 1811, the artist would reproduce the pose for a depiction of Jupiter. The painting is extremely imposing, measuring 259 by 162 centimeters. It idealizes and, most importantly, venerates Napoleon, making him the emperor, not only through his title, but through his representation. He is elevated, richly draped, and surrounded by eagles. Eagles being a strong representation of empires, going as far back to the Roman Empire and later the United States and Nazi Germany. Napoleon was also deified in some way in a painting Antoine-Jean Gros made in 1804 titled Bonaparte Visiting the Plague-Stricken in Jaffa. Napoleon's image was starting to get tarnished as he had to retreat from his Syrian expedition. Rumors were saying that he had ordered 50 of his plague-infected soldiers to be executed. In this scene, Napoleon is reaching out, heroically and selflessly, to a man infected with the plague. His officers try to stop him, but Napoleon, in a sudden burst of empathy, gets in contact with his subjects. This could of course be paralleled with the myth of Jesus touching and healing a leper, even though his disciples advise him otherwise. This depiction of Napoleon was made explicitly to win public opinion, to have the French population believe that he wouldn't murder people with the plague. This depiction gave Napoleon humanity, but this humanity was paradoxically dressed with messianic qualities. Another famous depiction of Napoleon as an emperor is Jacques-Louis David's The Coronation of Napoleon, commemorating the accumulation of power in the hands of the new emperor. It was commissioned by the emperor himself, David being his personal painter. It's a monumental scene, this one measuring almost 10 meters wide, rendering the event in an almost life-sized scale. You see Pope Pius VII, Josephine the emperor's wife, and of course Napoleon holding the crown he's about to wear. Originally, David intended to portray Napoleon crowning himself, but that could have been perceived as a bit authoritarian, so he went with this very strong and composed posture. But this painting wasn't only carefully crafted to make Napoleon likable, it also modified reality. Bending the truth for political reasons, especially in imagery, has been a very effective way to control public perception. For example, the older brother of the emperor, Joseph Bonaparte, didn't attend the ceremony due to a fight with Napoleon, but was still painted as if he did. More importantly, the emperor's mother, who was placed in a highly important position in the composition, also boycotted the ceremony. Napoleon couldn't afford such disorder and drama in his family to taint his coronation ceremony. This was one of the many moments when he had to embody strength and stability to the French people. He therefore preferred perceived strength to reality. Lastly, we can finally take a look at the most famous depiction of Napoleon ever created, Napoleon crossing the Alps. It was also made by Jacques-Louis David in 1801, and, of course, this picture is highly propagandistic. It's the depiction of Napoleon's invasion of Italy, which he courageously led through the Great St. Bernard Pass in Switzerland. He is shown here epically mounted on his horse, battling fierce wind, leading his men in rocky terrain. He carved his name in stone next to history's great leaders Hannibal and Charlemagne, both generals having led troops through the Alps. Napoleon is positioning himself through this portrait among the greatest conquerors of history. He is calm and confident, although his horse is eager and the wind is blowing strong. David is showing the French people and the world how strong and courageous of a leader Napoleon really is. But that was all fake. Once again, truth was traded for political gain, for power consolidation. Paul de la Roche, another French artist, decided in 1850 to recreate the scene in a more realistic way, in conformity with what actually happened. Napoleon didn't lead his troops through the Alps, but followed them a couple of days after they crossed. Not only was he not leading, he was being led by a peasant who guided him. Perhaps most importantly, Napoleon didn't cross the Alps on horseback, but on a mule. This is perhaps one of the biggest adjustments made by David in his original painting. Portraying Napoleon on a fiery horse is much more awe-inspiring than picturing him on a mule. Portraying historical or even current events to conserve and strengthen power has been used for centuries. Napoleon, being a very successful war strategist, wasn't only talented on the war field, he also had amazing abilities when it came to fight ideological wars. He understood the importance of manipulating the masses through either text or image. He understood the importance of propaganda. Napoleon was able to bend the truth to create a heroic image of himself, to create a following that would venerate him even after his death. He did all of this partly with the help of art. I often find myself believing that political art is about challenging power systems, to rethink and reshape social hierarchies. But we can't let ourselves forget that art can also sometimes bolster power and, for example, help create emperors. As art enthusiasts, we must remain vigilant. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, I'd encourage you to subscribe. And as always, I'd like to thank all of the Canvas's patrons for the support. It's truly appreciated. If you also want to support the channel, check out patreon.com/thecanvas.